everyone. My name is Neoh, and I've been in the HPC community for probably the last 15 years. And more recently, the AI community in the last probably 3 years, right? So I'm not a scientist. I can't give you math models like Amanda can, but I can tell you how the industry's been going over the last 3 years for AI because it's been accelerating. Oh, you can't hear me. Sorry, I talk to slides. This is going to be interesting. All right. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the global AI revolution, right? We're going to talk a little bit about how New Zealand's doing, AI's impact on the scientific, on our scientific practices, some breakthroughs that we're seeing worldwide, and future trends based on how we see it as a HPC vendor, which is a little bit different than everyone else. And then we were supposed to have a panel discussion after this, but we've changed that. So you're going to get Gabriel come up afterwards, which is a bit after the micro break. And he's going to share with you NVIDIA's view of AI's impact on science. He'll also share a lot about the tooling that NVIDIA has to help you accelerate your research, which is very key and important because they have frameworks that can make your life a whole lot easier, right? So the global AI revolution. If you've been sitting under a rock and didn't know there was a revolution happening, well, this kind of tells you that it is, right? Because it's affecting us everywhere, from our phones that we use on a day-to-day basis to how our children are learning in school. It's changing the job market. The whole global economy's gone nuts. And a lot of that has to do with AI. But as a result of that, we've now come up with a whole lot of new challenges. And because of those new challenges, the requirements for computational workloads are just getting so data intensive that you need more and more and more of that. So the NVIDIA guys are getting super rich. And then you have friends like DeepSeek coming in to change that. But never mind. We'll talk about that in a separate time. But I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this chart, right? Because it's some milestones and some highlights from last year about what's happened in AI. Starting from the top, healthcare. If you didn't know, AI has kind of really achieved human-level accuracy or better. So these are the radiologists looking for cancer tumors through our MRIs, and they can see it better, the AI can, than a human being or radiologist. So we've surpassed that capability using AI, and that is wonderful for us because we want our healthcare to be a whole lot better. But on top of that, there's a whole lot of acceleration on drug discovery as a result of AI. And that means we're getting to the path now where we have personalized treatments potentially down the road for an individual. I personally may need something that's different than yours, and this can be computationalized and come out with a medication plan that will service you directly. So these are the breakthroughs that are happening in healthcare, right? Some of the more technical changes that are changing. OpenAI came out with Strawberry, which is basically just not a transformer model that's statistically trying to prove what the next word's going to be, but it includes reasoning. So this is the first example of a model that can really have, why did it come up with that answer? And obviously not take a million supercomputers to do it. So that's one change last year that we're seeing, and you will see more and more of these models come out as we mature in the life cycle of AI. Because rightly or wrongly, it sounds like we're already there, but we're probably just touching the surface of where we're supposed to be. And then you got to look at the regulations. Over the last, I think, 12 months, we have got astronomical increases of regulations from an ethics perspective, from a governance perspective, around AI coming out of Europe. We had a lot coming out of the US, and then Trump back that. But that's going to happen. I mean, Australia's got some things going on with ethical AI through CSIRO, but we are all trying to get an understanding of how do we govern AI, because it is learning faster than we can actually decide what to do with it. AI investments. This has set records left, right, and center, right? I get calls sometimes from new startups that say, I have $100 million, I want to buy GPUs. The amount of silly money that's being thrown at AI at the moment is getting ridiculous. OpenAI set an investment record. In October, it raised $6.6 billion worth of investment, largest venture cap deal of all time. Today, if you read the newspaper, Elon's decided he wants to buy OpenAI for $150 million. Whether that happens, that's besides the point. But you can understand that there's silly money happening, right, everywhere. and because of the potential that people see in AI. HPC growth, as a result, has gone nuts. So these are the 3 shares to buy. This is not a financial advice, but everybody's getting accelerated valuations because of it, even data center vendors. People, all the business consultants are telling you it's going to grow by leaps and bounds, but there are improvements in the way things are. So the little picture at the bottom was XAI. XAI is basically X, you know, Twitter X. So we need to tell Amanda that XAI has a different connotation, not explainable AI, but it actually belongs to Elon. Colossus is his supercomputer. It's 200,000 GPUs. And he basically can train Grok, which is his GPT-style model, in 19 days. And then on top of that, you're starting to see model innovations. And I always like to tell people, right, humans are wonderful beasts because we are innovative. You throw us a problem, we'll come up with a solution. So our models are too big, our supercomputers are too small, or our budgets are too small and we can't buy it. So we're going to make the model a whole lot smarter. And there's been a whole lot of different, innovations out there, from small language models. If you've heard of large language models, last year was a small language model that were outperforming large language models. And then every one of us have heard of DeepSeek, right? And who knows whether they are cheaper to process or not, because that's still being peer reviewed somewhat. But they're pioneering methods like parameter sparsity, who's basically improving the models, making it think a different way, making it process a different way. So that was 2024/2025 a little bit, right? This is in 1 year. God knows what my chart's going to look like next year. All right, so when you try and get to the innovative part, you kind of really need some large systems and some smart people doing it. One of the problems that we have in this AI industry is a lot of the research and developments being done by the commercial vendors. The researchers and the academics are also touching it, but the bulk of the papers that are coming out are by commercial vendors, right? So we have to keep up. So therefore, we have supercomputers that are running around the world that have different capabilities to do different things. Rick Stevens is presenting, I think, on Thursday. Argon's his baby. So the Aurora system was what he implemented. So if you want to know more about that, go ask him. But the biggest supercomputer in the world is now currently El Capitan. That's currently sitting at Lawrence Livermore, and that, I think, got onto the top 500 in November. And then obviously you've got EU. So all these big systems are there to kind of help AI push its boundaries and what it can be done. Because commercial vendors, for example, will come out with ChatGPT, and it's not parallelized. So they have no incentive to make the code parallelized. They're happy to do it in their little land. But there are papers coming out that have used Frontier to basically parallelize a similar ChatGPT-style model to basically make it run a whole lot better, about 80% more efficient than if it were in a typical system. So how is New Zealand doing? I like this site. It's called tortoisemedia.com. They kind of compare all the countries around the world and where they are with their AI journey, right? Well, New Zealand not doing so well. 48 out of 83 countries. And I think at the bottom of us, we're talking about Somalia, we're talking about Myanmar. So yeah, not so good. That circle on the right-hand side, the full circle are the likes of the US and China. So imagine them, their circle will be totally filled in, right? So they're good. So they are the max case, and we rank among them. Now, how do they calculate it, right? So there's a whole bunch of categories, and these are the definitions of what these categories mean. But infrastructure, we don't have a lot of that in New Zealand. Operating environment, kind of 30 out of the 83 countries. So we're all doing not so bad. But if you look at some of that, government strategy sits at 71. We don't really have, according to Tortoise Media, not me, that the government strategies in New Zealand don't quite line up with what's necessary to advance and innovate in AI. And that's a problem, right? So these are some of the things that we need to keep ourselves measured on. Because last year, there was only 50 countries on this list. This year, there's 83. And if we want to be competitive around the world, AI will be the future, and AI, as part of science, will be it. So therefore, we've got to keep up with this, right? I'll let you go and read later on. Now, AI impact on science practice. Where are we seeing it? So what Amanda presented this morning was a lot of machine learning models to help with your science. But these areas of impact are really about taking things like Gen AI and LLM and how they take it one more level. Because someone in the room asked about what do you do with big data? This is what you do with big data, right? We're using Gen AI to basically analyze the data, because there's so much data. Math models can only do so much, so we use AI to basically correlate the data, identify patterns, correlations, label and tag them. It improves efficiency, because now the scientists can actually leave the AI once they've got that set up to do what it's supposed to do, and they can go focus on the science paper that they were supposed to do in the first place. It's currently helping us with hypothesis generation. And we are only as great as our imagination is, but funny enough, if you ask OpenAI some stuff, it will come up with things you don't even think about. Because when I was setting this presentation, I asked Perplexity AI for more information so I can augment my charts, and the amount of things that came up was amazing that I didn't even know about. So AI makes us superhuman. It's kind of what I like to say, right? We are smart, but we're not super smart, and we don't know everything, but the AI just makes us a little bit better. And there are model developments coming out every day. If you don't know about AlphaFold that won the Nobel Prize, these are the things that are now coming out into our science domains as abilities that we can extend on. Now forecasting, NIWA uses it in their environment. It's in their app. That's to forecast weather patterns out into the future. These are all becoming part and parcel of our day-to-day lives. So breakthrough in science. I mean, I'm not going through that. That's just my picture slide. But there are two types of technologies that are kind of accelerating where AI is going, right? There's computer vision, which is what I talked about in healthcare. And then there's natural language processing, which is what Gen AI, ChatGPT stuff is about. And you're seeing a lot of that coming out now in many areas of scientific domains. I mentioned AlphaFold by DeepMind, and that's to reduce the number of drug discovery, or basically accelerating drug discovery. CERN, the Large Hadron Collider, it's basically filtering all the billions and millions of data that's coming out of their systems, and so that they can actually see what's happening out of it, right? So this one says it's 2 Higgs bosons simultaneously. Not that I know what that means, but that's what it's kind of finding out. But it's not just AI models in the back end. We're creating AI-powered robots that can go into some very dangerous places like the desert for power data centers and manage that. So it's got an extension outside of just papers and research. It's actually got physical applications. But there's some other areas as well. Models such as deep genome, what was that? I can't see it. MetaGen. In climate science, you've got Climate Emulator ACE, and then you've got VidPatch. All these are now models that are accelerating our science to just be better. You still need the human, so don't worry. You got to bring HPE into that because that's who I work for. There are 3 examples of where we've actually done some good work with our partners. So this is running in Pawsey, Western Australia system. It's a big supercomputer out in Pawsey. They work with Carnegie Clean Energy to basically harness wave power. So they use the supercomputer to design the buoys, to use the supercomputer to kind of measure waves and output and power output. Lumi, same sort of thing. Lumi is the big system in Europe, and they're basically helping to anticipate environmental disasters, just insights across the energy, the food sector. And then, again, from a drug discovery / wet lab improvement sort of perspective, Stokes Lab and McMaster's Uni, these are some of the research that has been coming out of systems that HPE has sold. So I always tell people it's a feel-good factor. I don't know how to solve the world, but I can sell you the supercomputer to do it. Okay. So what are the future trends as seen by a HPC vendor, right? So this is what my peers have come up with as a result of all the conversations we're having with the supercomputer labs around the world, with some of the scientists that were coming out the world. AI is now a dominant workload on supercomputers. What used to be 100% HPC workload only, we're now seeing it across AI. So all those big supercomputers you saw just now has a component of AI in there to supplement, because they're mixing both the empirical models and the theoretical models, and they're creating, I guess I'll get to the end of my trend, workflows that basically helps with your design. There's also kind of post-Dennard scaling, right? We can't keep scaling our supercomputers to be as big as necessary as the models go up. So we need to come up with different ways of doing it. And who knows, DeepSeek will actually be at the top as opposed to the bottom. But these are our performances of supercomputers are not kind of keeping up with the AI. So these are the realities. We may hit limits, and we will hit limits for a lot longer than we can expect. Power is one of the limits. Because, and we talked about infrastructure just now around New Zealand, about no cooling facilities. CDC is very well capable of doing that, but that's only one out of many data centers, right? But power and cooling, your supercomputer is going to churn out rubbish if you run computation through it and it's too hot. It will actually literally come out with rubbish for you and you won't even know it. So power, efficiency, and cooling matters, but the trends are NVIDIA GPUs are 2,000 watts. Ask Gabrielle about that later. CPUs are 500 watts. These machines are just getting too hot for us to handle. We're now putting water in there. Who knows, if they don't stop, we're going to run out of space or power. I talked about workflows. It's no longer about one app that gets put through the supercomputer and out comes an answer. It's about a whole workflow of activities, and it's now measured to a time to solution as opposed to how fast can it come out with an answer. And lastly, supercomputers are no longer about bare metal. It's more about cloud. So we are making composable architectures so that you can port. Because if, for example, if you know about the UK Met's procurement for their $2 billion weather system, that's actually built on top of Azure stack. So Azure is creating the whole supercomputing software stack such that it's cloud-like, so that your experience doesn't change from one purchase to another. It will all become seamless to a certain extent for the users and the researchers as the equipment grows through their life and improves their capability. And that's kind of where I've tried to keep it light and easy in terms of where the world's going. And as I say, Gabriel's going to come up after the break, and he's going to help you see it from an NVIDIA perspective. They are the kings of the world. And help you with the tools that you potentially use within your environment. That's kind of it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, April. Are there any questions from the audience?
This is an easy audience.
Not for me.
Oh, okay, ask away.
Well, I followed all your advice, and I just bought all those stocks, which had me wondering, do you think that any part of this is being oversold or overhyped? Is there any message of caution to go along with the well-justified optimism?
I'm not allowed to dispense financial advice. But is there hype? Like with any new technology, if you look at Gartner's hype curve of new innovative technologies, there is always that level where we go a bit nuts before we understand what it's actually used for, and then we become mature and we are smarter, right? That's right, Gartner maturity level of products. Like I said, we are in the early days. I can't tell you whether to buy it or not, but we are still in the early days, and I'm seeing leaps and bound changes from month to month, not even year to year. I'm reading everything every day, and it's driving me nuts because it's changing that fast.